Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out. Every day is a journey toward letting it rain more and more in our hearts, right? Man, there's a lot going on. So y'all are going to have to sign up for my newsletter if you want any updates on Does Fire Ministries. But there's a lot going on, lots of books being published and printed and written, and it's a great day to just be doing stuff for the kingdom, right? To be working for the kingdom. So this week we've been talking about these little one-liners, kind of. And today we have a mic drop situation, kind of. It kind of is, kind of isn't. Jesus pops the big question to his disciples, right? He's sitting here. I'm just kind of imagining that he's just healed the blind man. He's fed the 4,000. So that was the second time they saw him feed a multitude with just a little bit of food. So they've seen the miracles and all of that. And I'm in Mark chapter 8, and it says, Jesus and his disciples left Galilee and went up to the village of Caesarea Philippi. As they were walking along, he asked them. Now they're just walking. I would love to in life, we kind of do this as believers. We kind of walk along through time and through life and just chat with Jesus, and just ask him questions, and they're just chatting. So they're walking along, they're headed from one place to the other, and Jesus pops this question to his disciples. Now, it is important to note, and I was reminded of this fact earlier this week, that the disciples are probably still teenagers, most of them. Most of them are very young. Peter's the only one that we know that was married because his mother-in-law became ill, right? And so we know that at this point he's married or somewhere along in this time, but he's still very young. And they're probably maybe 16, 17-ish. They might be 18. Jesus called, was it the sons of Zebedee that were with their father, still fishing with their father. So they were still working with their father, and which wasn't really uncommon, but they're pretty young. They're not mature men. They're not grown up, really. And they're pretty young guys, right? They're just walking along, and Jesus asked them this: who do people say that I am? Well, this was an easy question, right? Because he's like, hey, what's the word on the street? What's everybody saying? What you hear? What do you hear about me on the street, right? And they answered him. It says, well, they replied, this is the New Living. Well, they replied, some say you're John the Baptist, others say you're Elijah, and some say that you're one of the prophets, that you're a prophet, or you're one of the prophets come back, I guess. Whatever their culture was in the day. So they were real quick to answer. They all answered. Then Jesus popped the big question, right? And he said, who do you say I am? Wow, that's a heavy question, right? What's the word on the street? What's everybody saying? Who do they say that I am? Oh, you're Elijah, you're John the Baptist, you're a prophet. That was an easy question because they had heard all of that. But then he says, who do you say I am? And I thought it's interesting because only Peter, who was probably the oldest of all of them, replied. It doesn't say they said, it says Peter said. Peter replied, you are the Messiah. And then Jesus told him not to tell anyone about him, right? Why? I don't know. But he said, I thought it was interesting. He asked them a question and they all jumped in. Oh, we've heard. It's easy to say what we've heard someone else say. But when he asked them, who do you say I am? Peter was the only one with guts enough to answer. Maybe he was the only one that had his thoughts around what was going on well enough to answer. Maybe he was the only one who had thought it through. Maybe he was just kind of the leader of the pack because he was the oldest young dude sitting there, right? But for whatever reason, they didn't chime in. It was just Peter. Peter says, you are the Messiah. You are the Messiah. There was no doubt. There was no question. And he said what maybe they were thinking. Maybe they hadn't quite got their mind around that. Maybe they didn't yet believe it in their hearts enough to say it. You know what? What I love about God is he can work with all of us, no matter where we are on that faith journey. If we're like Peter to have the mic drop and just go, you're the Messiah. Mic drop, right? Mic drop. That's it. There's nothing else to say. You are the Messiah. That summed up the whole Old Testament and settled it right then and there. You are the Messiah. You are the Christ, the Son of God, the one whom God has sent to us to redeem the world, right? He summed it all up in that one statement. And I just think it's interesting that they were very quick to say what someone else said. It's easier to do that. Who do people say that Jesus is? Well, that's easy. We can say what everybody else has said, but then when we come down to that, that's a real deep question right there to say, who do you say he is? And it also comes down to relationship. It comes down to who do you want him to be in your life? We can say he's the king on the throne and he sits in heaven, or we can say he's the king of the throne of our heart. Both are true, but where are we relationally to him, right? Because we know that Peter is going to be sold out to Jesus until right before the crucifixion. And when their world starts falling apart, Peter falls apart. But he knows he's a Messiah. And he's brave enough right here in this moment to say, well, you're the Messiah. He's the only one that's brave enough to say it. But that's Peter's character, right? He starts talking and then thinks later, right? But he jumps in and he goes, you are the Messiah. It's a relational question. Who do you want God to be in your life? Now, he's always going to be God. He's always going to be on the throne. He's always going to be the King of Kings. He's always going to be the Lord of Lords. He's always going to be the Prince of Peace. He's not going to change. But how much of that do you want released in your life? That goes back to a relationship question, because we could say, who is God to you? Jesus could ask, hey, Jesus, you could have asked one more question. Who am I to you? Would they have said friend? Would they have said teacher? Would they have said companion? Help does fish catch more fish? Teacher? Preacher? Would they have said something different? Had he said, who am I to you? So you turn that question around. What's everybody saying? You know what? It doesn't matter as much what everyone else is saying about God, about his word, about peace, whether we have it or not. It just matters who he is to you in relation. Who are you in that relationship? How much, we have friends that are friends on different levels. I have some friends that I can just hang out with and say anything I want. They're not going to condemn me. It's a safe place. They know me. They know my heart. I can say things and they're not going to get offended and walk away. Then I have more shallow friends that maybe I haven't spent as much time with, or maybe we haven't developed that kind of a trusting relationship with yet. And I'm not going to say my whole mind. I'm going to try to be nice. I don't work very good sometimes. Sometimes I can, be nice. And then I've got people I meet and I don't trust at all. So I haven't built that trust. It doesn't mean they're not trustworthy. It just means I haven't built that trust yet. And I'm not going to say some things. I'm going to be really guarded in what I say. So we look at these types of relationships. Now we have people we don't even know, right? And so we look at these relationships and go, which kind of relationship do we want to have with God? Who do we want him to be to us? Do we just want that image of God sitting on a throne up in the heavens waiting for us to mess up so he can smack us with a bat, stomp us with his foot, or press us down with his thumb? Is that the image we want of God? Is that the relationship we want? Or do we want an up close and personal Savior? One he's already saved us. He's already redeemed us from the curse of the law, all that the law brought, all Adam and Eve brought on us in the garden. He's already redeemed us from all of that. Do we want to walk in that? Do we want to accept that? Or do we just want to think of him as just the Savior of the world and he's over there? Or do we want him to be up close and personal with us? Who do you say he is such a deep question here. And Peter didn't say, you're a teacher, you're a prophet. He just said, you are the Messiah. You are the Messiah. He could have said, you're a friend. You're our confidant. Thank you for being, no, sorry, make me think of that song, right? But he could have said anything, but he said the truth. You are the Messiah. Who do you want God to be? Because he's not going to just walk in and push everything aside and go, okay, I'm here now. Let's get all this stuff in order. Let's get all this stuff straight. He will only do what you allow him to do because he's a gentleman. But he wants that relationship with you. He wants to build that trust because he knows a relationship takes time. And he's got all the time in the world. He's even got the whole world in his hands, right? He's got it all managed. And yet he's willing to spend that time to build a relationship so that it can be more of a relationship where you know you're in a safe place. You can tell God anything. You're not going to tell him something he doesn't know, by the way. You can share every thought, every emotion, all the raw stuff that goes through, all the crazy thoughts that goes through your head. And he's not going to throw you away. Why? Because he wants to be your friend. He wants to walk through time with you. He wants to know, who do you say I am? Who do you want me to be in your life? And he will operate to whatever extent you allow him. So I'm going to encourage you today to go deeper in that relationship with him, to go past what others say he is. They're not wrong, right? Maybe they're not wrong. Maybe they're actually right. Maybe they've got some truth in there. Maybe they've got it all together and they're exactly right. But who do you say he is? Do you want him to know him on a deeper, more personal level? Because God is so open for that. That's actually what he's waiting for. And he can't wait for you to say, he's my friend. He's my Messiah. He's my Savior. He's my everything, right? He is my Prince of Peace. And I'm going to peace out today. Peace out, you guys. Have a great day. I'll see you again tomorrow.